Is the housing market, well, in trouble? One expert tells Business Insider the real estate market is in for a sharp correction, with losses that could take a decade to recover from as buyers face high mortgage rates, surging inflation, layoffs, and more. Let's bring in global real estate advisor Jenna Stauffer. And Jenna, good morning. What is the state of play right now, in your opinion, for housing?
Well, there absolutely is an accessibility and there's an affordability crisis, and it is having such a huge impact on today's buyers and really future generations to come. No doubt about it, affordability, it has just deteriorated at the fastest pace that we've ever really seen. Now, in terms of where prices go from here, I believe everything really comes down to inventory. That really is the biggest piece to the housing puzzle. And of course, in some of these markets where you are seeing a softening, and yeah, a softening is happening, you are seeing some price cuts, but these are the markets where inventory levels, where they have really picked up, where demand just hasn't kept up with that. And I would say this year specifically, demand is weakening. There are so many buyers that have just hit that affordability ceiling. There are geopolitical tensions. There are a lot of domestic uncertainties. It's an election year. These are all things that definitely pull back buyer demand.
Yeah, well, and there's a lot of uncertainty. Again, we're going to hear from Jay Powell this week. He's going to be on Capitol Hill. If interest rates don't come down soon, that means that mortgage rates don't come down anytime soon. And you know, Jenna, the Department of Housing and Urban Development claims that the Biden administration is now taking these steps to lower housing costs and increase supply. They approved $85 million to build new affordable housing, but critics are saying that these moves are putting us closer to, an overall economic crisis by putting more, more spending, more fiscal spending. What do you say?
Well, I say that if you ask prospective home buyers if they felt any relief, if they felt any help, an overwhelming majority would say no. We're in an affordability crisis. Affordability, as I said, it has just deteriorated at the fastest pace. This has been such a challenging environment for buyers. They don't have much incentive to buy in this market. You have the higher home costs, the higher mortgage rates, the lock-in effect with sellers holding on to those 2-3% mortgages, the lack of inventory. These are all consequences of the pandemic-fueled housing boom and really years of easy money policies. It just doesn't seem to be getting any easier, and it's not just impacting young people. What's happening is this is having such a broad impact across the board. Middle-income families, they're being hit with this. 20 million homeowners, they're considered cost burden by their monthly payments. The core issue behind this too, Cheryl, is that these wages, it hasn't kept up with the higher cost of living.
Yeah, absolutely. And we saw that again in the jobs report. We're going to get more data on that with CPI later this week. Jenna, before you go, Redfin came out with this new study, and it shows which U.S. cities had the highest share of new mortgages given to home buyers that are actually under 35. Coming in at number one was Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. 48% of buyers were 35 or under. And then you had Cincinnati, Ohio, second. That was at 46%. And then Philadelphia, just over 46%. What do you make of these numbers?
Well, what I'm hearing, these are more affordable cities. I think that for home buyers, because again, affordability is such a huge issue, if they're wanting to attain this goal, their dream of home ownership, they're having to move to places that are much more affordable, where the cost of living is much lower.
Yeah. Mike Lee's got a question for you. Mike, jump in.
Yeah, Jenna, given how low the inventory is nationwide and how hard it is to get a mortgage and how much equity has to be put into a home, I think it's almost impossible to see another 2008-like crisis in the housing market, although in certain markets we might see small pullbacks. But, that's where home price, like I live in the Gulf Coast of Florida and Sarasota, home prices have basically tripled in a broad swath, and maybe they come down 10 or 15% from there. But I don't see this big correction coming nationwide. Do you?
No, what I see is a dose of reality is entering the housing market. So what's happening is sellers are going to have to be less aggressive in their prices. I think we already are seeing that. We are seeing some price drops, but again, these are in places where inventory has really picked up. In those spots across the country where inventory hasn't picked up and demand far exceeds it, you are continuing to see those price jumps. So what these price drops really tell me, and what I think will happen in the housing market, is we'll shift more towards normalcy, and that's something that this housing market hasn't seen in years.
Yeah, normalcy would be good considering what's been happening with interest rates, and I'm glad you bring up the inventory issue. And you're seeing build-outs in some cities, but not as many as we probably need to get back to a true state, and also all those boomers that are still not willing to leave their homes because of the interest rate environment. It all comes down to the money. Jenna Stauffer, it's always great to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Cheryl.
All right.